Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Saturday, January 25th. This is episode 48 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Another week, Championship Sunday is tomorrow. We have reached the Final Four: Commanders, Eagles, and Bills, Chiefs for the right to go to the Super Bowl in New Orleans 2 weeks from tomorrow. But before we get into those games and everything that's going to take place here the rest of the postseason in the NFL, a lot of news went down this week in the NFL coaching hierarchy as we got 5 more coaches that got hired this week. Obviously, Vrabel already got hired in New England, and the only vacancy now left is New Orleans, which I don't think any of us is really too surprised with that. So lots of news to get to. DiMari, how's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Pretty slow week. Pretty slow for AFC Championship games. I think this is always the slowest week of football when you only have 4 teams kind of left in it. But it's been a lot of news about some coaching moves. Some of us may be pretty happy about them. Some of us may not be ecstatic at all, especially if that news broke at 10 o'clock last night and was pretty unexpected. All your friends are texting you about it, but no surprise, New Orleans has not been kind of filled yet. We talked about it off air a little bit. Their situation is awful. But for the ones that are happy, I guess we can start with you. That's what we're going to start with. You are pretty happy about what the Jets have done this week, so I've been told.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. He was, Glenn number 2 on my list. Flores was my number 1 just because he was a proven, experienced guy. But I did like Glenn too. The Jets, out of the guys they interviewed, I would have, liked to seen them interview some other candidates. McCarthy, I would have liked to seen them interview. I would have liked to see them try somebody like Gruden or somebody like that. But I do think it does tell you that none of those guys are getting interviews elsewhere. Like Gruden's not going elsewhere. Obviously, Flores really isn't going to get another job. So clearly, Glenn was obviously more qualified than they felt those other candidates were. And I like Glenn a lot. I just, my biggest thing is just another first-time guy, but I do think Glenn is a lot different and could be a little bit different than all the other first-time DCs we've had come in here, just because he is a former Jet, played from 1994 to 2001, an all-time great Jet at that. Really, probably the second-best corner in franchise history, only behind Darrelle Revis. Was the best there for a while before Revis came along. And I think, he was there during Rich Kotite, which was some of the 2 worst years this franchise has ever seen. And he saw the turnaround to Bill Parcells. And I think seeing that turnaround as a player and then working his way up the coaching hierarchy, he's a qualified candidate to then, these past couple years, seeing the turnaround with a first-time head coach and a first-time GM and Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell in Detroit. I think there's something to say about that he's taken a lot of that. Ideally, he's learned a lot from those experiences, both as a player, witnessing a turnaround and a culture change, and as a defensive coordinator. And he can take that here in this market. And he understands the market, right? He played in it. And I think ownership-wise, ideally, they will trust him because he was a player. He played 2 years when Woody owned the team the first 2 seasons in 2000, 2001 after he bought it from Leon Hess. So I like the hire. I do. I think it's a solid hire. I think it's in a perfect world, he comes in here, CEO, accountability type of coach that can oversee everything and really change this culture. I think his playing days, again, are really, really important. And he wanted to be a Jet. Like he's mentioned the last couple of years, how this was his top job. And I think there is, again, something too about that where he wants the Jets want him. Not too many times do we hear people want the Jets, especially this coaching carousel we talked about in the beginning. How many coaches would even want this job? And I think the fact that he is a former Jet, this is obviously a place that's close to his heart. Come in here, highly motivated to get this thing turned around. He's got a legacy as a player. I think he's going to want to continue that. So overall, I like the hire. And I just don't understand some of the Jets fans already writing him off as Robert Saleh 2.0 or Todd Bowles 2.0. I don't understand that, because you can't diminish what he is as a candidate. He's a very good candidate. He's one of the top candidates in this cycle. He is a little bit different than those other guys. I know all these other guys we talked about, especially with Robert Saleh, we talked about, right? CEO, accountability, all that stuff. But Saleh never played. Saleh never played for the Jets. He never had history there. Like, there is a little bit different about him playing, him coming back to this organization. I, and I also think some of these people too are like, oh, look how his defense finished in Detroit. Well, number one, they were dealing with a ton of injuries, but number two, he's not coming in here to be a defensive coordinator. He's coming in to be a head coach. He's coming in here to oversee the defense, oversee the offense, oversee the special teams. He's not going to be the defensive coordinator. That was the problem with Robert Saleh. He was a defensive coordinator put into a head coach's role, and that was the problem. We saw what those 4.5 years were like. So overall, I like the hire, and I just hope it works. I hope it works. I'm rooting hard. I hope it's finally the answer, because it's been too many of these cycles that we go around looking for answers.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I personally like the hire. I was disappointed that it wasn't Dallas, so I don't know why I wasn't surprised though. Obviously, they didn't even pick up the phone. But I've also been seeing that kind of from Twitter, people kind of writing him off. And I think what people don't really grasp and understand, which I think like why Vrabel is going to be successful with his, next time up, it's when guys play in an organization, and why we're saying with Aaron Glenn, when a guy plays in an organization, it's like you've played and you kind of know the expectations and you know everything that you wanted and from that organization while you were playing. So of course you're going to try to implement that while you are a head coach. And that's not to discredit any other guys. So I'm going to use like a Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy came in there. Obviously, he's a successful coach as well, and he knows what it takes to win. But when it comes to just pure culture, not even talking about just winning losses, when it comes to pure culture, I think hiring a guy that has played in the organization, does know the organization very well. That is almost as like you get a head start. He doesn't have to learn all that and come in there and try to learn, the Jet way and all this. It's already engraved in him. He played his time there. He served his time in New York as a Jet. It's engraved in him. I think it's a great hire. And you brought up a point where people are saying, "Oh, look at his defense in Detroit." And I kind of understand it, even with the injuries. I kind of understand it because the defense did not look great. And I know a lot of people with him and Ben Johnson are also feeling like they didn't take this round of playoffs seriously because they were just so focused on getting a head coaching job. But at the end of the day, you can't knock a guy that's qualified, whether the defense played great or not. At the end of the day, you can't go off of one game when if their defense was not a top 10 defense, obviously, but that defense played a big part in why the Lions were as good as they were. So you can't really look at how the defense looked throughout the year, especially in the playoffs, say, okay, well, just because of that, the guy doesn't deserve a head coaching job. Like, that's ridiculous. I think might sound crazy. I think he was probably the second best candidate out there behind Ben Johnson. Lions do a great job, but I'm happy for the Jets. I like it.
Yeah, and that's the other too. You make a great point. Like, there's a lot of Jet fans that are like, oh, defensive coordinator. Like, he's a very good candidate. He was one of the top candidates on this cycle, and they got him. Just because I understand the history's there with the Jets going with defensive-minded coaches, and it's not working out in the long run. Like, Glenn is his own candidate. He is his own person. I think we've got to put that into our heads as well. And you make a great point. And I was even going to bring this up as well, just about there is something about players playing with their teams and then coaching their teams. You look at, there's right now 5 coaches, 4, well, technically 3 that have actually coached games. Vrabel and Glenn are new, of course, New England and the Jets, 2 players with their former 2 coaches with their former teams. But you look at the other 3, D'Amico Ryans in Houston. I'd say that's working out pretty good. Dan Campbell with the Lions, and Jim Harbaugh is a little bit different just because D'Amico Ryans and Dan Campbell were first-time guys. But even Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers, it's working out pretty well. I just like, why can't the Jets find a way here where Glenn is their new D'Amico Ryans, where Glenn turns into their Dan Campbell? He was just with Dan Campbell for 3 years, 4 years. Take some of that, come in here, first-time guy. The Lions organization was in the same spot the Jets are in now. They were a dumpster fire. So I'm excited. It's a new day. It's a new era. And, a lot of the players, too, former players, are going to be at his press conference on Monday. I kind of like that. It feels like some of these old players and the organization feels like it's kind of like everybody's rallying around him a little bit, and I think that's pretty cool to see, too, just from a fan's perspective. And we also heard, too, that the Jets are reportedly going to hire Darren Muji. as their general manager, has spent some time with the Broncos, 13 years, working his way up the ranks. Many believe that he should get an opportunity to be a general manager. He's got close ties with Sean Payton, who has close ties with Aaron Glenn from their days in New Orleans. So that matchup kind of makes sense. My biggest thing with Muji and Glenn, there needs to be experience on their staffs. You know, Sean McVay had Wade Phillips during his time in the Rams. He was like a guy that he could kind of lean on and mentor. Glenn reportedly wants to hire Steve Wilks as the defensive coordinator, which I like a lot, right? A guy that's been an interim. He's been a head coach before, not very successful, but still knows the day-to-day operations and can help Glenn out. And I think it's important too for Muji, just given that he's a first-time head coach or a GM as well, to hire some experience on his staff. Guys that have either been GMs before or guys that have just been around the league a while and have been in the front office for a while and know and understand team building and all that stuff. So we'll see. But it's a new day and I'm happy about it, as it's a new regime. And I think it's important for them to try and pick up some wins right away here in 2025. All right. Should we move on to the Cowboys now? I'll be honest. I'm just going to say this. To me, and I know they weren't going to extend McCarthy anyway, but to me, if you were going to not extend McCarthy, in my opinion, I think you should have went after somebody bigger than Brian Schottenheimer. Like, to me, McCarthy's better than Schottenheimer. And I guess I can't jump the gun and automatically say that because Schottenheimer's never been a head coach before. But, you know, I don't know.
This is where, I get very hypocritical because, guys like, I would just say Aaron Glenn, who's getting the first time, and D'Amico Ryans, I like that hire. And it's like, they never had head coach experience, but I like the hires. But in this case, I'm not going to say I hate it. I'm not going to say I am on board with it. I'm literally just middle ground. I don't understand it. I am with you, though, where if you were going to not extend Mike McCarthy as it is, at least pick up the phone on a Ben Johnson, pick up the phone on an Aaron Glenn. Just the simple Pete Carroll, just simply picking up the phone and trying to make something, at least an effort like we're trying. That would have been, I think, enough. But it's just the fact they kind of just sat back, just watch the clipboard go down. Johnson, gone, check. Glenn, gone, check. Pete Carroll, gone, check. Oh, great. Look how it ended up. We were going to hire you anyways, and now this is where we're at. But like I was saying off air, I'm not even going to long rant about this. I've been so disconnected from them since the season ended, so it doesn't affect me that much. But like I was saying off air, you kind of look at some of the resume and you see the good. You see he was the offensive coordinator and Dak's MVP runner-up year. You see some times in Seattle. You see some times with the Jets in some early years. And you're just like, okay, I can see where like the offensive side of it will come in, because obviously this is a team where offense is kind of, I don't necessarily say that bread and butter, but that defense has very been stagnant, throughout the years. But the offense has been consistently good, always have been a top 10 offense. So you look at that and you're like, he's bringing that offensive side in mind, somebody that can help Dak continue to excel. Like, that's great. But then you look at the bad years and you look at his time in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence, that 1 year were there. You look at that 1 year in Indianapolis and you're just like, why is this guy even qualified? I think the thing is, that's the word I'm even going to use. I just think that he's underqualified at this point. If he would probably just say it had another year, and this year doesn't help with all the injuries and everything that kind of went down. But let's just say this year Dallas, goes 11-6. Dak has another great year, gets to the playoffs, great. Next year, offensive coordinator as well. Dak has another great year, go to the playoffs again. Then it's boom. Now it's like, okay, maybe this guy can be a head coach somewhere, proven track record through these last few years with Dallas. Let's give him a chance. But you're kind of at this point where it's just like, what has he necessarily done in the league, like an Aaron Glenn, like a Mike Vrabel, like a D'Amico Ryans, where, wherever they've been so consistent, so successful, you're like, let's give this guy the keys to the franchise. That's just not him. And I know his name, the last name has to do with a lot of it. His dad had a lot of ties in the NFL, bounced around. That has a huge part to do with it. But it just almost seems like Jerry Jones is not trying to win. It's just, hey, let's throw somebody out there, shut these fans up, and let's move on from there. I guess we will see next season, but I don't have too much to say about it, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you, and especially that last point. And I know they gave him a 4-year contract, but to me, this feels like a 1-year thing where he's going to throw him out there. They don't love anybody in this time around, and they're going to throw him out there. And then next year, they're going to try and get the hottest candidate. I don't know who that would be. I mean, that's probably way too early right now to see
Well,
who. I will say,
up,
Robert
sorry.
Saleh could be.
Okay.
If he goes to San Francisco now as the DC, which I'm happy for him, right? He was always a good guy, just didn't work out here. He got eaten alive. He's not a good head coach, but I do think Saleh, excellent defensive mind, great defensive coordinator. If he goes to San Francisco for a year or two, I think he could be a top coaching candidate in a couple years where he has learned from his mistakes, goes back to, San Fran under Shanahan, learns a little bit more. Really not even learning from Shanahan, but more so learning from what happened here at the Jets. The biggest thing with Saleh was his staff was horrible. It was terrible. So, he could be a top candidate. I know they interviewed him this time around, but I don't know. I mean, do you have anybody else? If they go Schottenheimer for like a year, this feels like I forget who else is like a one and done in some of these other places where they just hire a coach for. It's like Gerard Mayo. The Patriots never even wanted Gerard Mayo. They were all in on Vrabel all this time. Mayo comes in. It feels like that could be like Schottenheimer. Bring him in for a year and then next year say, oh, okay, now we find our guy, maybe.
Well, I'm actually glad you said Saleh because yes, it was some traction before he obviously went back to San Francisco, but a lot of people that I follow on the Cowboys Twitter side of things and beat writers feel like this is probably gonna go one of two ways, which in either case he doesn't last. He lasts 1 year, and a lot of people thought what would probably happen was Saleh gets brought on, and then this 1 year happens, it doesn't work out. Robert Saleh gets promoted to head coach, or another name that has been floating around is Jason Witten, possibly being brought onto the staff. And this 1 year doesn't work out, and then Jason Witten now becomes the head coach, which is the possibility that I can see. The Joneses love to keep it in the family so much, and we were just talking about guys that's been with the organization. They know the culture. Why not a better guy than Jason Witten to bring in that is just so beloved by the front office, loved by the fan base? So I can honestly see the Jason Witten thing happening. But again, kind of, I don't want to immediately just go worst case scenario. He can possibly come in there and everything can go well, and everything looks how Dallas used to look. And I say that as if it was 10 years ago, but they get back to that form of 12-5 and they're getting to the playoffs. It's just getting over the hump. So I honestly think the one case for him to kind of extend his 1 year, to extend his 1 year, they have to get to the conference championship. I think that's kind of the line for him, the bar. If he doesn't do that, then, and depending on how the regular season goes, he's out. They are going to find somebody else. But if he can find a way to just get in there, just turn the tables a little bit, I would not be surprised if he can just ride out the 4 years and see what he brings.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know, right? And that's the thing. He's a first-time head coach, so he could be the greatest thing ever. Maybe he is the right new voice working with Dak. And who knows? I mean, look, Schottenheimer is walking into it's a tough spot with Jerry Jones, the owner, the market, the media. It's tough. But he is walking into a destination from a talent perspective that is favorable. There's talent on that team. He's got a quarterback. They need to work on, need some help around CeeDee Lamb. They obviously need a running back. Defensively, they could probably use some help too. It'll be interesting to see who his DC will be, whether that will be Eberflus, maybe a full-on Jets 2010 to 2012 reunion with Sexy Rexy, who did interview for the Cowboys job. What
he did?
2 years ago, last year. But anyway, I mean, it's just interesting. I'm just surprised that you fire or move on from McCarthy. Don't make much of an attempt to retain him. We heard that there was no offer even made. There was really no negotiations. And then you go with Schottenheimer. I thought they would maybe go move on from McCarthy and then go and make a splash for a Dion, or even if they knew McCarthy wasn't going to come back, potentially then go all in for Belichick before he took the UNC job. That's why I just thought that the Cowboys would do that. They would make more of a splash move as opposed to just basically promoting a coordinator.
And kind of to add on, where the point of me where I'm like, what are we even doing? I mean, you look at the four that's still playing right now, and Kingsbury and Kellen Moore have been two names that are like they possibly thought Dallas would possibly go with. Kellen Moore, obviously more than Kingsbury, again, guy that played and coached already inside the organization. So like you didn't even want to wait until after Saturday to possibly see if you can try to poach one of those guys. Like I don't get it. And again, it almost feels like we wanted these guys. We wanted Glenn. We wanted Johnson. Obviously, they went elsewhere. So now we finally actually got our guy who was going to be the guy regardless. If Glenn or Johnson would have probably interviewed, you're probably going to hire, him anyways. So it's like they settled. And again, I don't want to bash too early. First year head coach. We don't know what the possibilities can be, but I just feel like there should have been a way more thorough search and, took their time more through this process before they decided to just make a decision.
Yeah, and there's been some weird hires in the past that have worked out recently here in the NFL. Like, you just look around the league, like, just thinking Todd Bowles in Tampa was kind of just a shoe-in. It felt like that was the end of the road. Right? It felt like going in. I remember 2023, I was at Jets-Bucks training camp when they were on Hard Knocks and they were at their joint practice. And I remember thinking to myself, my God, this Bucks team is going to be so bad this year. They're going to be terrible. Baker Mayfield, at that point, his career really wasn't revived yet. He just spent time with the Rams and the Panthers. And it was like, geez, this team's going to stink. They're going to blow it up. That's, post-Brady era. This is where it all ends. And here they are, I know they lost, but they're still a team that's made the playoffs now, back-to-back years. Baker Mayfield, had an MVP type season. Not going to win MVP, but could be in the conversation. So that was weird. I would even say, Dan Campbell at first in Detroit looked like it was going to be a train wreck. Yeah. I mean, he was talking about biting kneecaps off. He was basically just yapping in his press conference for an hour. That didn't look good at first. Just the thought of hiring basically a career tight ends coach to just jump and be a head coach for a team that had no success previously, walking into a losing culture seemed like an awful idea, but it worked out. And then pairing him with Jared Goff looked terrible. But hey, I know they lost last weekend, but we still can't discount what they've been able to do. They'll be right back in the race next year. So there's been some weird occurrences. I'm just trying to think going around the league. I mean, I would say Sirianni, maybe in Philly, his.
I agree with that one.
I didn't love that hire. I mean, remember he's talking about photosynthesis and the flower and, there's been some strange hires here. Talking about all NFC teams, so maybe it's a theme, but there's been some weird hires that have actually kind of worked out. So maybe that's what happens here for the Cowboys. It's kind of I would say it's probably a strange hire, right? Maybe. Yeah. It's when you think about who the Cowboys are, their brand, their owner, and who they could have potentially gotten. I would say it's definitely, and who they've moved on from more importantly, I would definitely say it's a little weird. So look, there's history of it working. Were you going to say something? Were you going to bring up another name before I cut you off?
Oh, no. Just still trying to process that 10 p.m. notification.
Yeah, it's weird. I saw that too. I was like, here we go. Brian Schottenheimer. I remember the old Brian Schottenheimer fire Brian Schottenheimer campaigns towards the end of his Jets tenure, because it did get ugly towards the end.
What made it worse for me, it's the one friend I always tell you about, the Jags fan, who he's the one that texted me, was like, this is interesting. Like, sir, please leave me alone.
Their franchise doing everything backwards right now. I don't know what I didn't have the perfect segue into Jacksonville. But
actually,
I mean,
because
what are they doing? They get the guy that they wanted, but what are they doing? This is why you fire the general manager and the head coach together. You don't bring Trent Baalke back. Shad Khan, their owner, literally said on that end of season press conference call, he's like basically saying, if the coach wants the general manager fired, we'll fire him. As Trent Baalke's sitting there, like, what are we doing? So Liam Cohen goes. I'll tell you what, this was like the last 48 hours following this story made my head hurt because you
Yeah.
had Liam Cohen say, I'm not going here. Right. And then you have, they fire Trent Baalke. And then all of a sudden, Cohen then gets the highest paid contract with Tampa, which I don't even know if it was ever fully agreed upon to become, extend as the offensive coordinator. Either way, they fire Trent Baalke. Then all of a sudden, you hear the reports that Bowles and the Bucks were trying to get in contact with Cohen. Didn't he say like his son was sick or something, and he was like he was with him, and then he was actually in Jacksonville getting ready to interview with Jacksonville again, hammering out the final deals of the contract. So the deal is done. So the Jags don't have a general manager right now. Liam Cohen comes in, so they get the guy they want, and basically now he's going to, similar to Aaron Glenn with the Jets. The Jets got the guy they wanted. They allowed him to kind of run this GM search, which, again, reportedly they hired Daramuji. Nothing official yet, but you have Cohen now to Jacksonville, which I like that hire for them. It's just the way they got there was unnecessary. Unnecessary. If they would have just fired Trent Baalke, they would have avoided all of this. I mean, who in their right mind would want to go to Jacksonville and work with Trent Baalke? Other than probably Robert Saleh, because Robert Saleh, I don't think is that type of guy that to say, hey, I'm only taking this job if you're firing this guy. He's not that type of guy, nor does he have that type of, I don't want to say resume, but he's not that type of hot candidate that I think could come in here and take control. I mean, you just had 4 straight losing seasons in New York. Cohen's a hot candidate, offensive mind to pair with Trevor. But, jeez. Shad Khan, he's an awful owner. He's terrible. The things that guy does are so stupid. And, again, you do have to give them a little bit of credit because they do get their guy in Liam Cohen. It's a good hire. I like the hire for them. But like they do everything backwards. That was typical Jets, what the Jaguars were doing. They were just playing. It was a circus for 3 days.
Do I remember a report? I swear I see this report on Twitter where I guess they told Cohen, like, hey, we'll give you Ben Johnson money and basically whatever staff you want if you just come over to Jacksonville. I don't know if that was ever really confirmed or what the case was, but I don't know. I don't know this situation. And it basically sums up the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just there every year season, let's go 8-3. Let's find a way to mess everything up. Let's do it backwards. That's the Jaguars. I mean, I have never seen an organization, first of all, for your owner of the team, so like you said, to just reiterate what you said, to literally say, hey, if you want this guy gone, we're just going to ship him out. Yeah. First of all, if I am, if I am a GM, I'm kind of just like, why am I going here? Like, this guy's willing to just hang me out to dry at the expense of any head coach. First of all, why would I want to be here? But also maybe that shows how awful he was. And, the ownership knew that. And they would just kind of was just like, hey, either way you're out. So why not let it be well known? But I don't know. I honestly don't know what to say about this team. Now you go from Baker, and I like it for Jacksonville as well. I'm on the same page with you because Tampa's offense this year was amazing. They were great with all the injuries. So it's like possibly can he get the most out of Trevor Lawrence? Can we kind of see that what he had in Tampa with Jacksonville? Because Jacksonville does have weapons. You do have Brian Thomas. Christian Kirk was injured. Got to figure out who's going to be your lead back. So, like, they have talent on that offense. It's just if Trevor Lawrence can remember how to throw the ball to the team with the same uniform on, maybe that and not turn the ball over just as much. So, I personally like the hire for Jacksonville. It's just the way that it went on. It was just ridiculous. It was – I don't know if you've seen Shaq and the Fool on TNT with like it was a Shaq and the Fool moment just in the NFL.
Yeah, 100%. And they do need to get that defense fixed. And that's going to be something important, too, for Cohen to hire a solid defensive staff, defensive coordinator. And we'll see who the GM will be, of course. But, yeah, it's just backwards what they did. It's so backwards. It doesn't make much sense. Look, I like the hire. I do. I just, Cohen is he's got, 1 year now of being a head or offensive coordinator. Or no, well, yeah. Well, no, he was the Rams OC in 2022. But with the Bucks, I mean, I think I think why the fit is probably more positive than some of these other options is, he helped. I mean, Baker was good in 2023, but he did help Baker reach a higher level than we probably didn't think he was really capable of this year. And I think for Trevor, he's kind of in that same spot where he's kind of hit like a wall or a ceiling that he really can't break out of. And I think Cohen ideally can go in there and help him out. I'm not trying to be negative. I just don't love Trevor Lawrence. I don't. I think he's kind of what he is. I like Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different because it's later in his career, and you have Geno, what he did in Seattle. Like you've seen guys in the past late in their careers break out. Right now, I just think this is what Trevor is, but it can't hurt hiring an offensive mind and figure it out. I don't know how much better are we really going to get Trevor? Like nothing about Baker, at least, I don't know. I guess you could say there's nothing about Baker, but, Baker brings some fire, and you started to see even prior to this year, he played a lot better. Trevor to be such a boring quarterback, such a they're just boring. They're boring.
You took exactly what I was about to say. It was just like, the younger viewers will understand this. The older ones won't. But it's like Baker and Geno have a certain aura to them, where it's just like they're fun to watch, and they like that swagger, that fire. And we've seen that from Geno in Seattle these last few years, where it's just like, this is a guy who you want to play for. Like they bring energy. Trevor Lawrence is just like he's just Trevor Lawrence. He's just a guy. There's nothing fun about him.
No, and Baker and Geno too. Like the guys rally around him. They're both, Baker more than Geno being a draft kind of I don't want to say Baker's a draft bust, but he never lived up to the full, it took him a while to finally get into first round pick mode. And that's just it. Geno a little bit different, right? But Geno was much later than Baker. I mean, it took Geno almost a decade to figure things out, but yeah, they bring that swag. They're a little bit older. They've had, previous failures in their career. Now they're figuring it out. I think, players love to see that, locker room, stuff like that. Trevor, it's, he had one really good year in 2022. That was about it. That was his one good year. And even that year, he had 25 touchdowns. I mean, this is a guy for getting hyped up as much as he did. He has yet to throw for 30 touchdowns in a season. And this year, even prior to the injury, was not very good. He had 11 touchdowns and 7 picks. So even if he would have played the remainder of the 7 games, you're probably looking at 7 interceptions in 10 games. So what, like 12 to 14 picks again? I mean, it's a lot of interceptions. Turns the ball over a lot.
29 and 15. Like if I had to pick a stat line for 29 and 15 for Trevor, it wasn't looking hot.
No, not at all. But I think, look, if you're looking at positives, you see what Cohen was able to do with Baker and how he had that huge breakout. You hope that that's Trevor. I just don't think it's very good that we're talking about all this early in his career like this, where he needs to have this huge breakout. We'll see. I think they can get a little bit more out of him. I just don't think Trevor will ever be a Super Bowl winning quarterback, will ever be a guy that can, look at this. And I'll be honest, if you want to, I'll just say this in general. If you want to be, because I did this last week, and I'm sitting there watching the Bills and the Ravens. I'm sitting there watching Mark Andrews. I mean, oh my, what are we doing, Mark Andrews? I mean, Mark Andrews disaster class. And I'm sitting there and saying to myself, and if you really want to think of your team in a negative light in the AFC, just think of the quarterbacks in this conference. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes again. Burrow's not going away. Lamar. If you really want to just even CJ Stroud, you look at what Bo Nix is now doing in his rookie year. If you really want to be negative about your team in the AFC and think that you're far away, just watch the playoffs and kind of sit there and think about all the talent that's in this conference quarterback wise. And just my point to wrap that back up with the Jaguars is Trevor is never. He's not even close to the level of a Mayfield or a Burrow or a Mahomes or even an Allen or even a Lamar. Heck, I'd take Bo Nix right now over Trevor Lawrence. I would.
And I'm going to
Bo
say
Nix
this.
showed me more in 1 year than Trevor has in 4 years.
I also want to say this respectfully. I mean, you look at the one quarterback that Trevor Lawrence has beat in the playoffs, that's Justin Herbert, who I think is grossly overrated. With all due respect, I think is grossly overrated. And just again, I kind of agree with that Bo Nix take. Like Bo Nix brings that fire to that team there.
Yep.
Trevor does not have in Jacksonville. So yes, you look at all the names you just named, they just like if Trevor gets in the divisional and Trevor's up against Lamar Jackson, he's up against Joe Burrow. Do we really like Jacksonville to win that game? Absolutely not.
No, not at all. I mean, they barely beat Herbert and Brandon Staley. So, different time, though. Right? That was, 3 years ago now? Yeah. But, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But the Jacksonville, the Jaguars make it hard to give them credit. They do. Like, even this hire. It's a solid hire on it seems, but come on now. What are we doing? Like, how, like, what just happened? Shad Khan cooking, I guess. Or trying.
Time to get Rush in there and let them both cook together. See what magic Duval County can bring, the two of them.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on to the next hire. Ben Johnson to the Bears. The hottest candidate out there. It felt like for a while everybody knew it was going to be Ben Johnson to the Bears, despite Tom Brady's late push to get him to Vegas, which to me never made sense why Ben Johnson would even consider that job. No. That job is not for a first-timer. We'll get to Pete Carroll on that in a second, but the Bears are a good landing spot for him. I think I've said it a couple times on the pod. I'm not like most with Ben Johnson. I'm a little skeptical. I don't know. I just think he's got a lot of things that he's got to live up to. He's said some stuff himself, even his press conference about, the Packers and LaFleur and stuff like that and beating them. And even last year, he didn't take any coaching jobs. This year, very picky. To me, Ben Johnson there's a lot of things that he's done that it feels like acts like he's already been a coach for 20 years and has 3 Super Bowls and stuff like that when he hasn't really accomplished anything. I don't know. All I'm saying is, and Bears fans are going to think I hate the Bears, which I don't, because I didn't love Caleb Williams coming out of college. Not that I hate the Bears. I just think he's a very good offensive mind. Don't get me wrong, but he's put himself in a spot where he's putting more pressure on himself, it feels like, with all these being picky and all this stuff. And I don't know, he acts like he's been there, done that. But it's a good option for them because Caleb gets his guy.
And I honestly think you said this, was it last week or the week before, about Ben Johnson. It was just like, hey, you're in Chicago, or when you get to Chicago, you're gonna have a lot to back up with kind of everything that is going on. And I personally didn't see the press conference, but you're calling out LaFleur and Green Bay and all this before you even get there. That's not a good look. But I agree with your point where his plate is so full, because it's not like you're going into it. I mean, I guess I'll continue some Jacksonville slander. You're not going to the AFC South where, it's like, let me just get through Houston. And after that, let's get to the dance and let's just get through Houston. You have to get through, obviously, Detroit, who now their top priority, kind of not really, like, they didn't leave on bad blood, still love between the two. But Amon-Ra said it on his podcast, like, the Lions are going to beat you every single time they play, out of love, just a love thing. So you got Detroit, who wants your head on the platter 2 times a year. Green Bay, who has owned you, literally owned you for like the last decade. And Minnesota, who we don't know what Minnesota is going to get. But from Minnesota that we've seen this year, I don't think this 14-win team is going to be a 3-win team next year. So you arguably might be in the hardest division in football.
Yep.
So you were here kind of hyping it up. And I know it's just trying to get the fan base behind them, get the organization behind them, and show belief. But what it sounds like to me, it's very similar to Caleb Williams texting the punter. It's like, hey, you're not going to have to punt this much this upcoming year. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I like the hire. Again, top candidate. It was so obvious. The whole world knew. I mean, even people were prank calling Caleb Williams as Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Everyone knew Ben Johnson was going to be a Chicago Bears head coach. So now it's just time to put your money where your mouth is. I do think Caleb Williams will progress. I'm not saying, he's going to go out and throw 40 touchdowns, but we've seen some of what he possibly could do this year. We've seen some bad Caleb Williams. I think Ben Johnson is going to get the most out of him. I think he's going to get the most out of DeAndre Swift. Obviously, weapons on the outside. So I like it for Chicago. It's just that division you're in is tough.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to make that clear, too. I like the hire. I'm just, and I think you said it perfectly. He's got to, put his money where his mouth is. He's got to prove it. Going in and taking shots at LaFleur and even the Packers just in general, like, dude, I know the Bears beat them the last week, but clearly do not understand the history between the Packers and the Bears. That is literally the owner of your franchise. That's the owner of your franchise is the Green Bay Packers. So, yeah, and they got a lot of work to do. I mean, I know, the NFC North people are going to combat and say, oh, they went 0-3 in the playoffs. Well, who was the only team sitting home in the playoffs? The Bears. So, and the pressures, there's going to be a lot of pressure. He is being tasked with not only turning the franchise around, but also turning Caleb Williams into what everybody expected him to be coming out of college. He didn't have a bad rookie year either, but they expect him to turn into this elite quarterback. And he's got to be tasked with doing that. He's got to be like the quarterback whisperer for them.
And I like that you said that, because now it's like you come in and I don't know, everything the Bears been through. It's like Ben Johnson. It's more than just going and fixing Chicago, fixing Caleb Williams. It almost feels like you're fixing all of Matt Nagy's mistakes.
Yeah,
you're fixing taking Mitch Trubisky over Mahomes. You're fixing Cody Parkey's double doink. Like, you are fixing everything that has went wrong for this organization in like the last 10 years. All the weight is on you at this moment, and then you have to do it with a second-year quarterback. It's tough.
Yeah. And one wrong move development wise, it could completely stunt his development.
Yep.
So there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure, and he's got a lot of that he said that he's got to prove. I mean, I think Detroit too. I don't know. Look, I don't want to say that he lost focus, because I guess you could say the same thing about Glenn. That's the old Glenn argument that, they were so focused on being head coaches, both of them, that they were, already looking ahead, and that's why they lost against the Commanders. But I will say this, and maybe this is just bias, but we did hear a report came out that Ben Johnson been working on his coaching staff like over the last week. Like, he knew he was going to be the Bears coaching coach, and he was basically already contacting potential staff guys. I mean, he was. I didn't hear anything about Glenn. I mean, basically, Ben Johnson was the Bears coach the last week that he was with the Lions, and that's probably why he's got Jameson Williams throwing downfield and trying to mix, telling him, "Hey, man, jeez, what are we doing? Throwing a deep ball with Jameson Williams, really?" I mean, Goff didn't play well. I mean, Teddy Two Gloves, the high school football coach, came in, but.
And it's like, do we not practice? Hey, if we try this and it doesn't work, just throw the ball out of bounds. Why do we always try to force into double coverage? Like, I don't know. Just Mohamed Sanu ruined the game that I love just because he has the most accurate, passer rating and QBR NFL history. Falcons legend Mohamed Sanu, but throw the ball out of bounds. It's you like, come on, what are we doing?
Yeah, I agree. It's funny, before Mohamed Sanu, or before not Mohamed Sanu, before Pacheco and all of those guys came around for Rutgers, Sanu was like the big guy. Him and the McCourty twins, Rutgers products. Yes. And Rutgers they still stink.
They had a good year. They had a decent year.
They did have a decent year, and then they blew the bowl game.
Yeah.
Jeez. Let's be honest though. Rutgers, they're never sniffing a national championship.
No.
They're not.
Doesn't help when you're in
Num-
the
n-
the
number
Big
one way to
Ten.
make
So
number one way to make yourself depressed about your Rutgers fandom. And I'm not, and I've just watched college football. I don't really have a favorite team, but watch Ohio State beat Notre Dame, and that'll make you depressed. Boom, Big Ten team that you're miles away from.
just college football side. Some teams get they get the short end of the stick. I mean, before this year it was Vanderbilt, and you got to still kind of say Vanderbilt, I guess, because now you got Texas, you got Oklahoma. Just some teams, you're just there for the vibe, and that's Rutgers in the Big Ten. It's just for the vibes.
Yeah, just to bring in their Rutgers. And the Rutgers basketball right now is very similar to the Nets, KD and Kyrie. Let's bring in Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, and it's going to work. And now they're a dumpster fire.
Well,
they're not even going to make the NIT.
Are they that bad?
Yeah, they're like 11-10.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, when your two players are shooting 80 times a game, I guess.
Yeah,
but they're both buckets. They're both buckets. But.
Yeah, it's basically. Yeah. Anyway, back to football. I will be honest. This next hire, I'm gonna ask you. I'm curious your thoughts because I feel like, and this is then after this we'll get into the games and stuff like this because we've already talked about Ray, but we could even touch on the Saints here too. But we all know the Saints are the Saints. The only game that'll be played in that stadium for a while after January 1st will be the Super Bowl here in 2 weeks because that team, I don't know if they're sniffing playoffs anytime soon. The next hire here, I actually might be one of my favorites out of all of this. And it feels like it's getting a mixed reaction around the NFL, but it's Pete Carroll to the Raiders. I have to ask you right off the bat here, what are your thoughts? Because to be honest, I love this hire.
I absolutely love it. Something about, and I don't know what it is. And I know you can look at one side like, well, he's spent some time away from the league. Sometimes that is necessary. Sometimes you look at how, like in his case, you look at how Seattle you ended. You look at the good in Seattle. Look how it kind of ended, and you fix, kind of what went wrong while you were there. And you took some time away. You kind of, worked on fixing some things. So now in your case, you are on that west side. You're in Vegas. You have all those ties to USC and all those type of things already in that vicinity. I love it. What can possibly go wrong, especially for an organization similar to the Saints? You're not winning the Super Bowl no time soon. Like, no time soon whatsoever. So why not go and get a coach where he is proven? And I guess, while we're kind of on it, you go get a GM that is proven, that has spent his time in Tampa, spent his time with Brady, who's a minority owner. By the way, I didn't even know until kind of looked it up a few minutes ago that him and Brady were together in Michigan. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So now
I think I heard something about that.
Yeah, Brady was a senior and he was a freshman. So you bring in people in that are so respected and well known around the organization to the organization where it's like, hey, it's only up from here because we've been so bad the last few years, like the post Derek Carr era, or even with the Derek Carr era, it's been so bad. Nothing can get much worse. Bring in a head coach, proven, turn some things around. What can possibly go wrong? I love it. Yeah. I thought Pete Carroll was also possibility of Cowboys head coach. He was on the radar. I'm not mad about it.
100%. I love it. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, he's 73 years old and he lost his touch and all that. I never understood the whole age debate with coaches.
I don't either.
Especially from a Pete Carroll perspective, because even, there were some times like, Jets fans and even myself, during the coaching cycle, you bring up a ton of names, especially when they fired Saleh and Douglas. And towards the end of the year, you're bringing up a ton of names and you're thinking, okay, maybe Pete Carroll could be an option. The biggest thing with Pete Carroll was, and that was always going to be tough, is would he want to go East Coast? Even when New England's vacancy became open, there were some people like, oh, would he want to go back to New England? I never saw that he would want to go on the East Coast. This, to me, is a win-win for Pete Carroll. He gets to stay on the West Coast, and he gets to be a head coach still. He's not any front office role, not any of that senior advisor role or anything like that. It's being a head coach, which he still wants to be. And I will say this, Pete Carroll, even though he's 73, he has the energy of a guy that's probably about 30 years younger. I mean, this is a guy at Seahawks practice. You'll see him; he could still sling it a little bit. So, I love the hire a lot. I do. I think it's a great hire. The Raiders need a culture change. They need that team in Vegas, in that market. The NFL needs them to start succeeding. Like, they need that team to start getting on track. And I think Carroll's the perfect guy. It's not really a place for a first-time coach or one of the hot offensive minds like Ben Johnson. I don't think that would have worked just because you don't really know the future at quarterback and just the environment. I think you're better off in a place where you have a legitimate quarterback that's already in place. Pete Carroll now can lay that foundation. He's a winner. And it's a 3-year contract. And I think Pete Carroll, wherever he was going to go this cycle, he is more of like your culture guy that can come in for 2 to 3 years, change the culture, and then maybe retire, and then maybe sail off. Get to 76, get to 77, be there for 3-4 years, lay the foundation, and then you kind of have that winning culture you build up where then the next coach that comes in already has that culture and then can succeed. Not only is this, I think, good for the present, I also think this is good for the future. I think this can set the Raiders up here for continued success because you've seen that in past places where a coach will come in for a couple years, turn the place around, and then the Jets are a perfect example of Parcells. He came in, turned it around for 3 years, and then for the next, really, from 2000 to 2010, they made the playoffs, I think, 6 times, including 2, title games in 2009, 2010, and, a division winner as well under Herm Edwards. So I think that can kind of be what happens here with the Raiders. And it's interesting now. We've already heard the rumblings. Do we get a Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson reunion in Vegas?
I have been hearing that as well. And I mean, where are the Raiders picking? Is it 6? I could be wrong.
I think
off the top of my head,
see.
I don't know. But they're not getting the Cam Ward, they're not getting the Shador Sanders.
No.
Russ is obviously that time in Pittsburgh is done.
Yes, 6.
Why not go get hypothetical. Why not go get Russ? Let's see if you can move up a spot or two, go get Travis Hunter, you paired him. Oh, Vegas. I like it. I think Russ has a great chance of being a Raider.
Yeah. I will also throw another name out there. Now, they weren't at USC at the same time, but still the USC connection. Little Sam Darnold, Pete Carroll action. I don't hate either option, honestly.
Especially in Darnold's case. I mean, after the year you're coming off, that way there's not so much expectation behind you in Vegas. I like that one as well.
Yeah. I like it. I love it. I really like this hire. Like I said, it's just crazy to me how there'd be fans that would get Pete Carroll to get hired, and there'd be people out there like, I don't know, not a great hire, or too old. And the guy's won Super Bowls. The guy's had success at every level he's been to, whether it's college or NFL. I mean, he's a proven track record winning coach. I don't know. Little Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson action. Imagine Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, Jacoby Myers. Jeez. They need to get some receiver help over there.
That they do. But I mean, I think we mentioned this where certain organizations, certain names, the Raiders, obviously not an attractive sight, but you get a guy like Pete Carroll, again, that has connections in the NFL, that has that respect in the NFL. Guys are like, hey, why not go to Vegas and give it a try? Yeah. So they could make a splash in free agency.
Yeah, definitely. You think they're a playoff team year one under Carroll? No. Okay.
No. It's you still got Patty, you still got Herbert and Denver. No way.
And I'll say that too. Just talking about the division. You look at the division, you have Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, and Jim Harbaugh. I mean, oh my gosh. That's ridiculous. A lot of winning.
Now, what I can say, I don't think they make the playoffs, but I also don't believe there has been a time where four teams from the same division get into the playoffs, but that would be the best case is that AFC West, just if Pete Carroll can turn some things around.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's possible, but
it's
because
very
there's with
possible.
this, yeah, with 7 teams now, you'd have to get 1 from the East, 1 from the North, and 1 from the South, and then 4 from the West. It used to not be possible when they used to just have the 16 format.
So basically, just to sum it up, you would basically need just Cincinnati and that division to all be awful. One of them win it, because we're in AFC South. They don't have to worry about anybody but Houston getting in there.
Yeah.
So count them out.
Yeah. So that division is just going to be like they're just going to.
Gauntlet.
Yeah, it's a gauntlet.
Oh.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out the word. But we know the Chiefs are probably still going to win the division every year.
Dallas plays that division. Dallas plays that division this upcoming year. Gotta love it.
It's not a good thing.
Oh my goodness.
Little Schottenheimer, Pete Carroll action.
Yeah, right. Just like we drew up. Maybe that's what Jerry had on that
Seattle
clipboard.
Yeah. All right. Shall we get to game previews?
Long-awaited NFC Championship.
Yes. All right. First of all, last week was crazy.
Yeah.
Commanders dominate. Just Jaden Daniels is a stud. Then you get the Bills game where, Mark Andrews just completely sold the game away. And now we're here. Final 4. Chiefs or Commanders, Eagles getting us started tomorrow, 3 Eastern. Bills, Chiefs. I gotta love Championship Sunday. We're here. Enjoy it. The final weekend of football with multiple games until really September, or unless if you want to include preseason, then early August. But September, that games actually matter. So enjoy this weekend. Enjoy the 8 quarters of football, maybe bonus quarters tomorrow, maybe 10, maybe 9. Who knows? Because this is it. Then 2 weeks and then one more game. And then it's full on in the offseason. So we'll start here with the Washington Eagles game. Philly, 6-point favorites at home. Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, and the Commanders heading into a hostile environment at the Link, an NFC East showdown. Over under set at 47.5. I'll say it right away. I like the Commanders. I'm going to take the Commanders in this game. I do. I know, they split the regular season. I know the Commanders lost, in Philly earlier in the year. It's a different team, though. The Commanders kind of went through that midseason slump a little bit. And that was kind of during it. That was kind of the start of it. And then they came out of it, and here they are now. I just think Daniels, to me, is just – and I'm not trying to compare him to any of these quarterbacks, but Daniels looks so calm in the pocket already as a rookie. He's so locked in. He's so focused. He's giving you vibes of what Peyton and Eli and Brady and those guys would get like in the playoffs, where nothing really phases them. And I think that's huge for him going on the road in Philly. Look, he went on the road, beat Tampa, went on the road, tough environment against Detroit. So it's a hostile environment. Eagles fans are crazy, and playing in that place is not easy, but this is also Commanders team that's also done it now 2 weeks in a row, especially last week, indoors with that noise. And they were able to take the crowd out right away. And I think that's one of the biggest keys for the Commanders is starting fast. Take the crowd out of the game early if you can, like they did last week, because that Lions crowd, it died down. You could tell there was a lot of nervous energy once the Commanders started to get things going and forcing some turnovers. So what are your thoughts heading into this one?
First, I think that over is going to be crushed. 47.5.
100%.
I mean, I think they're going to crush that. But out of pure hate, give me the Commanders. I think that's what we're going to go with. And I remember before the season started, after the draft, Colin Cowherd is on his talk show, and I'm at work, and he's talking about the Commanders finishing second in the division. And I'm like, why did this guy have a show? This guy's an idiot. This is the one time I could say he's ever been right in his life about something football related. And I think they're going to continue it. Give me the Commanders. the only thing that's so tough, I feel like every week of these playoffs, I've just been like, just slow down Saquon. Just slow down
Yeah.
Saquon. And there's been no slowing down Saquon. Saquon is a subway coming right at you, 200 miles per hour that you cannot stop. And, I mean, you can't even contain him. It's one thing to stop him completely, but you can't it's one thing to contain him, but it's another thing to stop him, and teams have not been able to do either one.
No.
So I think Washington's big thing is going to be take care of the ball. And it's so tricky because you know how Cliff Kingsbury runs that offense. They like to score quick. They like the big chunk plays, but you want to keep Philly off the field. But Washington, their offense is not really built like that. So I think for Washington, again, this is going to be take care of the ball, create some turnovers, try to keep Philly off the field as much as possible. And if you got to put 11 in the box to stop Saquon, just put 11 in the box. But give me the Commanders.
Yeah, you have to find a way to slow down Saquon somehow, some way. And I'm interested to see if Dan Quinn, how he's going to scheme this up, because you do wonder if, like you mentioned, stacking the box and loading up. You do wonder if they're just going to basically say, look, we're going to sell out to stop the run. And if we start stopping it and Jalen Hurts beats us with his arm, then, oh, well. You know, I think that I could see that being the game plan where you go all in on stopping Saquon Barkley and make Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm. And if he does, then
you live with
he does. It's just, you kind of give credit where credit's due at that point. Nobody's, it's the age old saying, right? You can only hope to contain him. Nobody's been able to contain Saquon. You saw it last week with that big run in the snow against the Rams, very similar to Shady McCoy's snow run against the Lions, back in 2013, I think it was in that game. I think for the Commanders, it'll be interesting. Just, they did lose their guard, Sam Cosmi, last week to a torn ACL, and Jalen Carter, who's had a big season for the Eagles. Something I'm interested in just seeing with the Commanders is they were able to get the run game last week going a little bit, where Brian Robinson Jr. had, 15 carries for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. As a team, they ran for 182 yards and 3 touchdowns. They had a good week on the ground. I think offensive line-wise, it'll be interesting to see how they look against this Eagles defensive line and if they can get the run game too going a little bit. I think it is important to have a little bit of that bounce on the road. I don't know what the weather is exactly going to be, especially, cold weather. I think it is important to have that a little bit of that balance where you can be able to go to the run and have some success with it. Brian Robinson Jr. is not Saquon Barkley, but the Commanders do have the advantage at quarterback. So it's interesting. And I think I think that's for the Commanders, the biggest thing is getting off to a quick start, putting the Eagles on their heels a little bit, and it's finding a way to contain Barkley. That's got to be it. Terry McLaurin's again big. I would also say some of these matchups we're going to get in the secondary in this game, I think, are going to be very, interesting to watch between the Eagles and the Commanders, with guys like Quinyon Mitchell back there and McLaurin. I think there's going to be some good matchups. So it'll be interesting.
Brown. My goodness. He's had quite the postseason. Out of nowhere.
Yeah. He's another one. You could probably put him down maybe as an X factor, because in the event that McLaurin does get shut down, you're going to need a guy like Dyami Brown. I believe last week he scored against Tampa. Last week, I think he had like 98 yards or something like that. Huge postseason so far. Good point by you there. But something to look for is him potentially getting not a majority of the targets, but if they're able to slow down McLaurin, he could be a guy that could step up, because we saw last week as a guy that stepped up in a big way. I don't know. I love what I've seen from Daniels, and I think ideally if you can, I don't even know what really constitutes as like slowing Barkley down. Like, what would Barkley's stat line need to be? Because a complete shutdown would be like hold him under 50 yards. That's not happening. But slowing him down would be what?
Slow him down is 80 or less. And it sounds crazy because that's still a good game. Yeah. But 80 rushing yards or less for Saquon. That's what you need.
Yeah. And probably no touchdowns.
Yeah. Unless they get Unless they get
Yeah,
on the
red
one
zone
or
or
something like
yeah,
that. But,
punches it in.
you
But
know, you can't hold him to 53 at this point in the game. In fourth quarter, he
yeah,
burst out for a long one because then it's just like all that
yeah,
for
and
nothing.
yeah, if you do allow a touchdown, it's got to be red zone. It can't be what the Rams allowed last week. You can't have hold them to 60 yards the whole game, and then like you said, have a 79-yard touchdown,
Yeah.
to take the lead or something. So it's crazy to me how we felt like running the football and all that stuff and defense was kind of really going away in the NFL. And here we are. We basically have a team with the Eagles that if it wasn't for Saquon, they'd probably be not even in the playoffs right now. I mean, they would have made the playoffs, but they wouldn't even be here.
And so honest. I mean, obviously Saquon's thing. First of all, this year is a big middle finger to the Giants organization for Saquon.
Yeah.
But also further on that, like, we kind of thought this league was just transformed, so everything's so pass heavy.
Yep.
It still is.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
then
look
you
at Daniels and the Commanders.
Yeah. And you look at what the Lions did this year. You look at Saquon this year. You look at Joe Mixon the first few weeks, no gloves, two elbow pads, 35 carries for Joe Mixon. Like, we're bringing back old nitty gritty run the ball football. And I mean, obviously it's not just Saquon, but thanks to Saquon, a big part of it. This is why running backs deserve to get paid, because they make a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be high scoring, 30. Let's see, score prediction. You're right. They're going to hammer the over.
And looking at the weather, 30 says it'll be 30 degrees with no rain, no snow, anything. So it's going to be cold.
Cold, but good elements like otherwise. Yeah, that's good. And it's two teams that are normal in the cold. It's not like the Rams are coming up here like they did last week, and obviously we're out of their element. 30. I'm gonna go 34. I'm gonna go 34-31. Why not? Make it dramatic. 34-31. Commanders win. Jaden Daniels goes to the Super Bowl, and I'll be rooting for the Commanders no matter who comes out of the AFC. I'm rooting for the Commanders the rest of the way here. Give me the commies.
All right. I like the 30s. I'm there with you. I'm going to go 36-33. This offense has been rolling. Either way, we both have a 3-point win for Washington. So I don't know if that's a Jake Elliott missed field goal or Austin Seibert made field goal. I don't know what it's going to come down to, but
it's crazy. Elliott he was nailing those snow field goals, and then comes extra point, he can't hit an extra point.
That is what's called washed. I think that's what that is. Just washed.
I was talking to somebody about this last week when or maybe it was the week prior. I forget. It was one of the playoff games. But I'm just like, the regression of kick. Oh, no, it was Fairbairn last week against the Chiefs. That was a disaster class. Oh, my God, he was horrible. That one miss. It was like I was kicking the ball. That thing was about to hit the pylon in the end zone. That was horrible. But I don't understand the regression with kickers in the NFL. They used to be automatic. I don't know if it feels like ever since they moved the field goal back or the extra point back, that maybe that's like affected them because it's further back and they miss a little bit more now and it affects their confidence. I don't know what it is, but 40 yarders back, like even like 5-6 years ago, used to be auto kickers would never miss. I mean, you're even seeing Justin Tucker. They miss. There's so many missed kicks. It's crazy. I don't know the exact stats, but we've got to be these last 3 years have got to be some of the most missed kicks in like a 3-year span in NFL history. It's got to be.
This is going to be very controversial because obviously I can't kick a field goal for my life. Okay, I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah,
I can't. But then again, when I played in high school, all the kickers did in practice was kick. They literally just kicked. They didn't condition. They didn't lift weights. Don't do anything. All they did is kick. So your one job is to kick. So, I mean, we can sit there, and I see both sides of it. You can't bash the kicker if you can't kick a field goal. Yes, you're correct. Yeah. But those guys can kick field goals, and their one job is to kick a field goal. They're getting
paid millions to do it.
Why are we missing these chip shots that we have been doing our whole entire life? So I am on board with you there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. It's just it doesn't make a ton of like. But you're right. They don't do anything. You even go to training camp, and the punters and the kickers, they just stand there. It's the best job, and they literally get
That's it.
paid millions to just stand and watch practice.
That is it. There's no like the only time you might have a occasional 10, 15-minute special team period. And I'm just going back to like when I played in high school. You
Yeah.
might have a 10 to 15-minute special team period where you get some field goals up, some live field goals, those type of things.
Mhm.
But throughout the rest of that, you're not hitting tackling dummies. You're not, you're not installing new offensive defensive plays. You're not doing 2-minute drills. You're not doing any of that. And like kickers get their most work on the walkthroughs when we're going through kick return, field goal, punt return, that type of thing. Other than that, you're just standing there. You have one job. You got to do your job respectfully. I still love my kickers, but you got to do your job.
I 100% agree. It's one of the most important positions, and that's why they get scrutinized. But look, we do give them credit when they make the kicks. I mean, there's been some awesome long kicks that have been made, but I mean, like, can't be missing some of these chip shots that they're missing extra points. I mean, what Jake Elliott, I think, missed 2 extra points. I mean, come on now. It's crazy. Anyway, Bills, Chiefs. Here we are again. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. The biggest, this is it. Can Josh Allen finally take down Mahomes, Andy Reid, Kelsey, and the Chiefs? I mean, lots of meetings between these two. The Bills have lost 7 straight road playoff games. They have also lost 3 straight to the Kansas City Chiefs in the postseason. Can they finally do it? I mean, this probably is the game of the weekend. Look, Commanders Eagles game is going to be great. I think so, but just in terms of the storyline going into this one, Mahomes, Allen, a battle now that's been going on for really the last 5 years, 6 years about. What I think their first meeting was 2020 AFC title game. So 4 years, because that's the last time the Bills made it, and then 2021 was the 13 seconds, and now they're last year, lost in the divisional at Buffalo, and now they're back. So 4th meeting, 0-3. Allen, this is huge for Allen, just legacy in general. Like one of these, you've got to finally find a way to take down Mahomes. And as crazy as the Chiefs record-wise they look, this is the last 2 years is probably some of the best chances Josh Allen's going to get, just because of the fact that last year it was not a Chiefs team that was They went on to win a Super Bowl anyway. And now this year, they're in all these one-score games. They haven't looked great at all. And this is a Bills team that's probably the best they've looked with Allen. So this, to me, is their best shot, one of their best shots they'll get. I know it's on the road, but this is a Bills team that's just playing as a team. They're playing collectively. Allen, we've talked about it a lot, without Diggs, just can kind of just play his game and not have to worry about force it to a number one guy. Even Amari Cooper, he hasn't played much of a role, but he's been a great locker room guy. He just wants to win. He's even said it this week about how, he doesn't really care about targets, all that stuff. So it's a very unselfish team, and they got a chance to, I would say, make America happy. I mean, I am rooting for the Chiefs in this one. I will admit I am rooting for the Chiefs, but I am sort of that guy that's holding up the sign that says hope both teams lose. I will say, and I said it last week, because the Ravens, I'm not necessarily rooting for the Ravens or rooting for the Chiefs. I'm more so rooting against the Bills, if that makes sense. So what are your thoughts getting into this one?
Well, I think there's 49 states in the U.S. that is on board for the Bills to win. The only one that isn't, obviously, is Missouri.
Yeah.
I hope the Chiefs lose. For me personally, they've become so unlikable over the years. And I think, I don't want to say it's Mahomes. I think it's just the crying to the refs, the obvious way, games swing in Kansas City's favor. Like, those type of things make you really dislike an organization. And that's where Kansas City has fallen for me. But on the other hand, Bills got to get it done. I'm on board with you. Like, this is the best chance. I mean, that record said what, 15-2 for Kansas City?
Yep.
15-2, but they did not look like a 15-2 team at all. So I think for Buffalo's case, I mean, I think we also said this last year was like, we're like, hey, last year, that's the worst team Mahomes is going to have. Well, actually, this year is the worst team Mahomes is going to have. And Buffalo got to get it done. I mean, they got to go in there. Arrowhead is always tough, and they just got to get that bad taste out their mouth. I mean, 0-3, regular season, it doesn't matter. You probably have beaten Mahomes and the Chiefs every time in the regular season since Josh Allen has been there. But when you are 0-3 against them when it matters the most, and 0-7 in road playoff games, very interesting. I did not know that. There's a narrative that you have to flip in your way, and I think tomorrow is going to be the day that they do that. And if the Bills somehow lose, it's going to be a sad day for America. So let's hope. Let's just hope Buffalo goes in there and gets it done. Even though I know you would not want to see a divisional opponent in the Super Bowl, but
we're kind of in the same spot because either way, you're going to have a division in there. And then obviously I'm going to potentially have a division in there, but look, the Bills, if they get there, I guess the funnier thing would be like them get all that way and then lose in another Super Bowl and then really see the fans, Bills Mafia cry. But no, I mean, look, bias aside, I think the Bills should win this game. They should. I mean, there's no reason they should not. They beat them up in the regular season. They are the better team. They're playing with absolute fire right now. They didn't even play that well last week, and they almost put up 30 points. I mean, they're rolling. And the Chiefs, the Chiefs are, honestly, I'll say this, the Chiefs play a very boring brand of football right now. They do. Their offense isn't explosive. Their defense is very, very good. But the offense isn't explosive, and they're going to get a call or two that goes their way. And that's honestly one of the biggest things is when does the call go their way? That's one of the biggest things you have to watch for, because it's going to happen. They're going to get a call or two that's going to go in their favor. It depends on where they are in the game, when it happens, what it is. Like last week against, Houston, they got that rough in the passer went their way, and then they got that personal foul went their way, and they were both stupid, terrible, and big spots too. So, the Bills, I think it's important. They got to, start fast, get out, put up points early on, similar to what we're talking about the Commanders on the road. That's the best thing you can do is get off to a quick start. And that's what the Bills have done. I mean, they scored. I know the Broncos scored in their first drive, but they scored right away against Denver after that. And I believe, they kicked the field goal, actually. And I believe the Ravens, did they score right away against the Ravens? I believe they did.
I think so. I was at work. I don't remember too much of the first
I'm
quarter
because the Ravens the Ravens were driving their first drive. The Ravens went down and scored their first drive. I believe the Bills went down because Ray Davis had the first touchdown. I believe that was first drive. Either way, the Bills have put up points in the first quarter of games so far this playoffs. That's what matters most. And I think if they can get off to a quick start, that's important. A defense in the Bills that got healthier and getting healthier, and you saw them a healthy defense against the Ravens was much better. I think something that's actually interesting to watch for the Chiefs is they've been very good on third down this year, and that's been a killer in some of these games, even against the Texans. And I know sometimes the penalties help, but the Bills can't get themselves in situations where it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and the Chiefs, Kelsey finds an opening in the middle. That just takes the life out of a team, especially early in the game. So, look, we know what both these teams bring to the table. I mean, can somebody slow down Travis Kelsey at some point, right? I mean, there's so many times where he just kind of finds a pocket in the defense, and it works. Linebackers, these safeties got to come up and deliver a hit, come up and play coverage, do something. I can't just.
I'm not. This should not be rooted for player injury, but I'm saying tomorrow. There got to be a time you lay a hit on Mahomes. You got to send a message, and again, it's not from ill intent. It's not go out there and break the guy's leg. But when you go out there, and it's so similar to Baker when certain times in that game where he's hyped up, first down signals, slapping the helmet. You just want to go out there and bring the energy, let those guys know on the sideline, like, hey, we're here, like it's time to play ball. I think somebody has to send a hit on Mahomes. Again, this is not Saints bounty gate before I start getting investigated. Just basically saying and going out there and you just make a play, basically prove like, hey, we're going to be physical. That's what we're here to do. I think that's what needs to be done.
Yeah. I will also say it's important for the Bills, too, to get some turnovers. The Chiefs, I was reading earlier a stat. They haven't had a turnover in 8 games, straight games. And actually, the last time that the Chiefs played the Bills in the regular season, Mahomes had 2 picks, and they won that game. So you're talking about potential recipe, too, for Buffalo. Force some turnovers. Hey, look, to me, like the Bills, the Bills are the better team. They are the better team. They have the better offense. The Chiefs have the better defense, but I still don't think it's not like the Bills defense is that bad. The Chiefs defense is just really, really good. Yeah. And I do trust this. I think Josh Allen's playing. He's had his best season, in my opinion. Watching Josh Allen his entire career, this has been the best season I've seen personally. And this is the best chance I think he's got. Who do you think wins? Because to me, it should be the Bills, but in the back of your mind, similar to last year when the teams played together, everybody thought it was going to be the Bills that win. Everybody, really, the Chiefs have no business. They shouldn't even be here, but here they are. They found a way. Voodoo magic.
I'm going to go with the Bills. I really hope they find a way, and you just feel like at what point does Josh Allen, and the Bills finally say enough is enough with Kansas City. So give me Buffalo tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. This is legacy-wise, you think the biggest game so far of his career?
I'm going to say yes. It's, the last few years with Josh Allen, it's kind of been, all right, you're such a great quarterback, but the two things that's knocked him the most is turnovers and beating Kansas City. You finally got the turnovers down. Now it's time you beat Kansas City. I think no how great he is. I mean, if you are 0-4 against Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs, that's going to tarnish his legacy. Got to get it done.
Yeah. Definitely when you see how good some of these teams have been and how the Chiefs kind of not as good, but they're still winning. I guess I'll go Bills. Like my gut tells me Bills, but on paper, everything points the Bills should win, but then again, it's the Chiefs. But give me the Bills. I say, I don't know. This to me is like a typical, I'm going to say like 24-20. I feel like that's what we're kind of in for. One of these. I feel like that's what these Bills Chiefs games have kind of been. I mean, even last year, I think, what was it, 27-23, the Bills?
Yeah, I don't think either one cracked 30.
30.
I can remember.
No, 27-24. And then this year, when they played earlier in the year, Bills won actually 30-21. But I don't know. This doesn't to me scream like a 35-31 game. I think this is 24-20 Bills. Just because the Chiefs haven't put up 30 points yet this year. Well, they did once. No, twice.
Well, the NFL script writers have them scoring 40 tomorrow if they got anything to do with it. But I like 24-20 Buffalo. I think we're both on board with that.
Yeah. Bills Commies. Bills Commanders.
That's best case scenario. We're being honest.
Yeah, I'll be honest. And that's why I'm rooting so hard for the Commanders tomorrow, because I do hate the Eagles. I'm assuming you're on the board. You're on board with the Commanders too, right?
Absolutely.
I know it's probably a lose-lose either way because they're both in your division, but the Commanders are the least hated.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Eagles Chiefs would be the worst outcome. Oh, that would be it would just be no, like honestly, last year saying Chiefs Niners, like we could have gotten Lions and Ravens, or heck, Lions in it, and we got Chiefs Niners. This year we could end up with like Commanders Bills, or even Commanders Chiefs, and if we get Eagles Chiefs, I mean, jeez.
If we get Eagles Chiefs, we're probably gonna do some community service on Super Bowl Sunday because there's nothing for me to sit there and watch. It's just no point.
It'd just be Saquon Barkley getting the ball 30 times and hoping that it
That's
works.
it.
Ugh. Anyway, any closing thoughts?
Last week of I don't want to say meaningful football. I'll say last week. Well, just I guess fuller slate of football. After this, we are not back until September. So
yeah, I agree, and it's also like The Super Bowl is more like an event than anything. You
Yeah.
know, this is like the Super Bowls, everybody watches the Super Bowl. It's, this is like the last weekend of true like diehard football fans, enjoying games on Sunday.
Yeah.
Next, 2 weeks from now, it's going to be more so about the other stuff than the actual game itself.
Yeah.
And I'm not downplaying the Super Bowl. I'm just saying that I agree with your point there. Kind of the last real weekend of football, with the Super Bowl being more of a entertainment thing. So yeah, so enjoy it. I agree. Enjoy it. Hopefully we get 2 good games. I'm hoping for 2. Ideally, we get 2 like classics. That would be great.
Yeah.
I think we will. I think we'll get one of. I think the Bills Chiefs, I think, is gonna be excellent. Those games are always good. Those games are always tight. Commanders Eagles should be good, but I'm more certain about the Bills Chiefs probably being a really close game just because of the history there. But we'll see. We'll see. So that'll do it. We will be back next week, and we will know who's in at that point. So we'll talk more about all the latest happenings around the NFL. And yeah, stay tuned. And thanks for watching. Talk to you next week.